20th of September 2025. I have been thinking about a few factors of being on the pension, and well, it's a double-edged sword in a sense. You're living two separate lives. Specifically, if you're on a disability support pension, if you're on a DSP, especially if you're on the DSP, it's very private for the fact of you can't really tell anyone, especially if you're a private person like myself, and just in general. For instance, it depends if you're a very social person. If you're a very social person, it can be a double-edged sword in the fact that with the DSP you really can't tell anyone that you're on it. And for instance, I have acquaintances now that who are taxpayers. They're taxpayers, and the moment that you mention the dole, New Start, or the pension to them, they screw up their face. They're like, "What's wrong with you? Why can't you work? Is that where my taxpayer dollars are going?" They get very upset about that. They get very upset about that. And for instance, like in yesteryear, I'm talking the early zeros when I used to work, people would say, it used to wear me down, working would wear me down, and people would say, "Oh, how's your job going?" I would literally say, "Oh, it's okay, I'm always tired," because I always was tired, especially if I was working 4 to 5 days a week. I was tired, and I'd say, "Oh, I'm tired." They'd say, "But you're working, right?" I'd say, yes, working, and they'd say, "Oh, yeah," and I'd say, or I would say, "Oh, I'm a bit depressed about it," I'd be like, "Oh, it's okay," and they'd be like, "Oh, terrific, good, you're working." And if I was, or sometimes acquaintances or whatever would say to me, "You're working, right?" I'd be like, having a bit of a break from that, and they'd be like, "What do you mean? What you're not the dull, are you?" I'd just say, "Look, I'm just having a bit of a break from the workforce at the moment, having a bit of a break from that." They are, "That's where my taxpayer dollars are going." Let's crunch their face up at me and say, "That's where my taxpayer dollars are going. So you're taking my tax dollars." And someone would, I think there'd be on the sometimes occasion where someone else would jump in and say, "Well, actually it's only 4% of your tax," and they'd say, "I want that 4% back." And that person would say, "Yeah, you usually do at tax time." And they go, whether it's the fact that taxpayers have to get up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. or work 12-hour shifts or 8 to 10-hour shifts, whatever it is, the DSP can be a lonely world, which I really don't mind, in the sense of you're very limited about who you can speak to, because when you're on it, you can't tell anyone. You just cannot tell anyone that you're on it, and especially you don't tell the taxpayer friends that you're on it. Like, I am on the pension now. I've told nobody. Told my mum. I told her 5 days after I got it, because for years now, she has been saying to me, "When are you going to get on that pension? Are you on the pension yet?" Finally got it. Didn't tell her the day I got it. 5 days later, I called her and she went, "Oh, what's that for?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, for years you've been asking me at least once a fortnight, are you on it yet? Are you on it yet? Are you on the pension?" because I'm very private anyway. And there are different aspects to the private spectrum. I'm on this at the extreme and very private. Can't tell anybody you're on the pension. Can't be around taxpayers. You cannot be around taxpayers anymore. It's very not a wise idea to be around taxpayers, and so then you might ask, but how do I get by in socialising? I'm a homebody these days. I'm very much a homebody. I don't go out and party anymore. And back in the day, when I did party, when I was out on the town 6 nights a week, when I was on New Start, how did I get by in conversation? Great, terrific. Half the people I would meet were on New Start, the other half weren't. And the people that I did speak to who did have a job didn't mind the fact that I was on New Start. And other people that I would relate to who did work and then would find out if they were to question me enough, find out that I was on New Start, did mind. They were like, "You're on New Start? Oh, you're on the dole, right? You're on the dole." They'd get very upset about that. So it was a very interesting world with different perspectives. But when you're on the DSP, your social circle gets chopped in half or quarters, so you're very limited to who you would be relating it to, unless they are very open-minded and it doesn't bother them, but it tends to bother most people because the Australian government can very easily afford to pay many people the DSP. I think what folks get cranky at, I think what the working people get cranky at is some of them get up at 5 a.m, do a 10-hour shift. Some of them, the ones that get cranky about it, and I've met a few of them in my time in yesterday. When I say yesterday, I mean 10 to 15 years ago when I was out in town, when I was socialising and what. They get cranky because they're in jobs they don't like. They're doing jobs they can't stand. They're in jobs they don't like. They're doing jobs they can't stand. That's why they get their knickers in a knot, because they're doing something that they do not like doing. Change jobs. Don't do that anymore. And they get really shitty when you say, "I'm on New Start," and you get even shittier if you mention that you're on the DSP. Now, the people that I have crossed paths with who were on the DSP, are on the DSP, didn't hang around with taxpayers, didn't socialise with them. I know quite a few people who were, don't socialise with them very often. A close friend of mine, Peter, Councillor Peter, I'll call him Councillor, I always going to say his last name, I can't in this video. He always understood that when I was on New Start, always understood. In fact, he would say, "Oh, you really should go on DSP." And I've talked about that. My friend David, I don't know if he's ever been on New Start at all, and he's like, "Oh, yeah," he says, "Oh, you can't work. You can't work. No, no, that'd be too much for you. You can't work. No, you need to go on the pension." And Peter would always chime in, "Actually, I think so. Yes, I think so." It's interesting that David turned around 5 years ago and said, "I'm thinking about applying for the DSP." I'm like, "Huh?" He's like, "Oh, I've got a sore ankle," which he had a real problem with his foot for years, and it must have just turned so uncomfortable for him. And he just casually said, "Oh," he was very serious about it too. He said, "I might go on the DSP," and he said it to me. I'm like, Oh, it's not that easy. What other friends do I... Look, I don't see my friends very often. They have to badger me to see them. I have become a homebody. I don't go out onto the town these days and party. Sydney has changed a lot, and not for the better. The new town in Enmore that I knew back in the year 2000 through to 2012 is gone. It just used to be metalheads, hippies, rock and roll people, goths and punks, and gays and bisexual. Newtown underwent a huge gentrification in 2014 onwards, which completely changed the face of Enmore Newtown. All those trendy people came into Newtown, all these fucking hipsters and all that came into Newtown. The Sly Fox lost its name. It'll always be the Sly Fox to me, but I'm on YouTube. I've got my goals. I'm on YouTube. I watch movies. I have a partner, a loving partner. On Facebook, some time back on Facebook, an acquaintance of mine who I really don't speak to him anymore. He was, I think he got granted the DSP. But he used to spill his beans on the Facebook page. He used to talk about news times. Sometimes people would say, you know, you really shouldn't discuss these sort of things on here. And he's like, oh, I'm just expressing myself. And they said, yeah, look, you best keep, because he used to talk about New Start and the pension. And then the taxpayers that he knew, they'd get on there and say, what's wrong with you? You bludger, you're taking all my tax money, and they'd have a go at him. And you get in this argument, and other people would come in saying, if he hadn't said a bloody word, none of this would have been happening. He said, I have a right to express myself. And they'd say, there's certain things you just keep to yourself, mate. And he'd be like, oh, I want to express myself. And they'd say, well, you asked for that. So when I say that I would see posts like that on Facebook, and I'd be like, jeez. I'm like, I don't, 80% of the things that I think or do, I do not post them on the Facebook wall. And I do avoid going into Facebook all the time. I try to stay away from it. People put up a lot of their laundry in there, their dirty laundry. I'm not into that.